Hello everyone. This is a slight departure from the usual stuff. We have my fountain pens and my fountain pen hobby, and the depths of which one can sink in a fountain pen hobby. And I have not sunk to the very bottom. I'm not like some. I would consider myself a light collector of fountain pens compared to others who deep dive much harder than I do. But anyway, let's get into it. This right here, this is my case for holding my pens. We'll come across this in just a minute. I have too many fountain pens, I have concluded recently. But apart from the pens, I mean essentials, you're also going to need inks. Every ink and any colour that you can possibly imagine. And they're all here, one way, shape, form or other. These are just the ones that I have tried out, the ones that I have selected. This particular orange was my latest try, and as much as I loved the colour, I had heard rumour that orange was an awkward ink to use beforehand, and that turned out to be true. All the other inks in here, the normal Parker Quinks, the Diamine ones that I've got back here, these are all perfectly fine, no issues at all. I do have a few more out where I normally keep my fountain pens, which is where I normally keep my kind of everyday fountain pens. And in here we have some essentials. We have a filling needle, so when the cartridge, if you're using a cartridge, is empty and it doesn't have a cartridge converter or anything like that inside, you can use this, stick it in your ink, draw some up, refill the cartridge. Nice and simple, and it is of course blunt. A little bit of kitchen roll, acts as a bit of blotting paper. Of course I have blotting paper, it just doesn't blot very well, which is kind of frustrating, hence the kitchen roll. And the free pens I have dug in here. Give you a quick overview. This is an italics. You can see there, as it turns in the light, it's got that kind of a different colour in the material, the blues and blues. This is Twisby, and there you go. That's it's a Schaefer. I think it's called a Tenaris. Quite an unusual thing. One of the first pens I bought after I realised that there were other fountain pens in the world, which is a story I might go into a bit later. So yeah, the everyday case for everything I need, the pens that I want to use in any given period of time. Over here, when it comes to washing and cleaning fountain pens, a little bit of paper, usually I put down under stuff just in case the towel runs through, and an old towel so you can do the old inks and make an absolute mess of the towel. If you're unusual like me and you want to tune your nibs a little bit, you're going to need a loop to magnify the nib so you can see it, and these here micro mesh pads, which you can see I've worked on quite a few of my pens because I am cursed, ladies and gentlemen, with left-handedness, and left-handedness does not work with all fountain pens. I, after a very long period of time, decided that I could try and tune my own nibs to see if they would work, and I have found that most can be tuned to suit my way of writing, but I'm not just left-handed, I'm an awkward left-hander. I know there's a specific way you're supposed to write with fountain pens. I do not write in that way. I hold my pen differently, and it causes no end of trouble. And finally, before we get into the pens and the collection, I've got this box of knickknacks, a little bit of silicone grease for the Twisby pens, a couple of small syringes, earbuds for cleaning, which you can't see because they're there. Little pipettes, and under here I have a pen that has wronged me. I have 2 pens that have wronged me actually. There's a Bic there with a tricorder grip that I do not get on with, and I have a Parker 45, which, if I can show you one-handed, I will. That there, slight angle to the nib, it's not quite straight, that means it's an oblique. I did not know that when I bought it, and I can't use it, so that'll have to be sold one day. More little essentials, bit of rubber gripping you can get at a hardware store. I bought this stuff special because I didn't know I could get it at a hardware store at the time. And another random little thing at the bottom there, some lammy nibs for replacements, none of which I like anymore, hence the reason they're in the box. Right, let's get on to the fountain pens. Now, I know it's going to be like a bit of a hot topic if you know fountain pens, but these pens here, these 3 Parker Vectors, they're quite special to me. I had that one for a long time, not having any idea that there was much else out there. In fact, I even bought this because I was in WH Smith, a British retailer, and I saw this pen and it said it was enabled for both left and right-handed, and that just kind of pleased me. So I went and got it and I started writing with it. I write quite specifically with my fountain pens in my journal. I keep a journal, have done for over a decade, I think it is. It's not accurate, it's not fun, it won't ever be read by the public. It's just for me and my thoughts and my mental health, and these pens make that writing in the journal an absolute joy, which is why I'm using them. What else have we got? It's over here. I don't want to be flipping all the time, but this here Parker Urban is the second pen I ended up buying. It was very, very nice looking compared to that simple little thing over there. I found this, it was on sale, and along with it there was some Quink, and that's Parker ink in case you don't know, and a cartridge converter, which meant I could refill over and over again without trouble. And with that in my case over there, I wrote with that pen for, I'd have to say, about 3 years minimum. Just that pen, every time, refilled, same ink, every time. I knew there were other pens out there, like Mont Blanc, but I never really went in for them. I knew Mont Blanc were expensive, and I didn't fancy spending a great deal of money on pens like that. But eventually, I found out there was a whole community, and there's completely different makes and brands, and there's old Parkers like this Parker 51. There's this Estabrook pen which I ordered. It's the only pen I've ordered from Goulet, the American pen company, and it's the only pen I've ordered because I paid, I think it was about 80 quid for it, and when it came over, because of the trade regulations, I had to pay another 30 odd something quid, I think, to get it off the post office so they would actually give it to me, and that's just extortionate. Nice pen, but I might go into, like, you know, closer reviews and issues with the pens, and but to be honest, there's people out there who do it already, and they do it to an absolute, like, it's an art the way they do these pen videos. Fig Boot on pens is the absolute peak for me. His reviews, the way he reviews, they're pretty much best of the best as far as I'm concerned. So if you want to find Fig Boot on pens, he's got more pens and more money, and goodness knows how he ends up with some of the pens he does, but that's what he does, and he does it well. This is the Ferrari Tenaris, same as the one I've already got, but I really like the one that I got, and I saw the Ferrari one, I thought might not be too bad to have it. It's another Schaefer one. One of these Schaefers in here is effectively bust, because I took it into someone in a pen shop. I said, could I get a converter for it? They said yes, slammed one in, and it has been locked inside the pen ever since and will not come out. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is, but the pen isn't particularly worth my time and attention to try and figure it out. So one of these is kind of locked beyond reasonable use. This is quite a popular one, the Lamy in the brushed steel Lamy Studio. I bought it because it was hyped. It's quite a good looking pen, and I don't get on with it that well. In fact, you can see two other Lamys next to it. This was my experimental Lamy, the one I wanted to change the nibs on. I made a bit of a hash of changing the first nib, so that didn't go well. This pen's probably a bit wrecked, but that's kind of why I bought it, so I could experiment with the thing, and at least I didn't do it on a more expensive pen. This Lamy Safari is much touted by kind of the rest of the world. Like in this country, in England, in Britain, the Parker and the Parker Vector, that's kind of what you had when you were at school. Lamy, I think, must be the equivalent for Americans. They always go on about Lamy Safari. I got it, I used it. It's got a tricolour grip, positioned to show you how to hold a pen properly. And I don't get on with it, don't like it at all. I've got a Faber-Castell Loom, and then some pens I can hardly remember the name of. This is a Pilot, I believe. This is a Faber-Castell I bought second hand, and when I got it through the post from eBay, it was inked and filthy and disgusting, and it had leaked everywhere. And to my great surprise and happiness, it did clean up and has not leaked since. But it kind of put a hold on me buying second-hand pens, the way that pen came. And then just down here we've got a kind of unique Parker with its special design. And over on this side, with the exception of this thing, because it didn't really have anywhere else to go at the time, and the TWSBI Eco, all these pens here are a little bit more and a little bit special, to me at least. And you'll see quite a few italics. So we've got italics, and well, I suppose that one's italics as well, but that's not great. And these I think these two are Chaplin's Tankard. This one is the Viper Strike. These are all made, made in England. I don't know if they are. In fact, I don't think they are. But anyway, they're a company based in this country, and they're a bit more unique. And at the time when I bought these three especially, you could pick, I think there's about 25 nib options you get when you buy one. And being a left-hander with a particular writing style, I always go for a broad. With this one I went for a broad cursive, so that's a broad that's ground out on either side to make it a bit better for cursive writing. And this was the first pen I bought. I don't know which one's which, to be honest, but let's just go with this. It's the first pen I bought from Italics, and it wrote in my style immediately, flawlessly, so I loved it immediately. And this one, let's say, is the double broad, and that's when I realised that you can have a pen that's too broad. It's like the width of my finger being written on it's just silly. It's wonderful, but it's silly. This is the Lamy that changed my mind on Lamy. This is the Lamy Ion. And the nib on this in broad, I did not tune myself. It just came and it wrote with my style, and it is an absolute joy to write with. It's a joy to hold, it's a nice pen, but writing with it for me is just peak. This is a Kaweco Sport in brass. obviously, a bit different. You can see from its shininess, I haven't really used it a lot because it is remarkably heavy in the hand for such a small pen. Unlike the other pens where you maybe slightly press them to the paper, this one you always have to pull back from the paper because it's so heavy. It just makes a different style of writing, and it's nice. I mean, you're not going to hear this about every pen, but I could kill a man with this pen. It's an absolute piece of metal. I mean, don't know what else. These other ones, at the very least, they'd break the pen. That one would probably survive. Anyway, TWSBI Eco. I've had this. I think I had it with my red ink for probably nearly 5 years, just as it was. Again, before I really got into getting other pens. But even then, with red ink in this TWSBI Eco, even though it's a fine, I have tuned it a little bit, but it did write pretty well before. It's always kind of stuck around. It's only recently that I've kind of relegated it to the case, because that was always in my everyday pen lot. This Italics, I can hardly even remember. I think it must have come free with the Viper Strike, because I don't remember ordering it. It's not great. And this pen here, that's something special to me. This was made locally. I actually bought it as a present for my mother, who did a lot of writing. I thought maybe she had a fountain pen like me, she'd get into it, we'd have something to talk about. Turns out she didn't. She never used it. She eventually handed it back to me. I couldn't write with it until I found out I could tune a nib. I tuned this nib, and it's probably my best tune of a nib so far. It is an absolute joy to write with. And it doesn't so much have a name, it doesn't have a brand. And the company that did make it, I believe they went out of business or ceased trading, which is tragic, because how many more pens might I have gotten? Unique pens, lovely pens. But yeah, that is my fountain pen hobby, and I just wanted to share that with you. So if you'd like to talk about it, if you'd like to see any more pens in depth or up close, let me know in the comments. Perhaps we share this hobby and we can talk fountain pens, because believe me when I say, if you don't know fountain pens and if you aren't into fountain pens, it's like a nothing subject to people. They just don't want to know. And maybe that's you watching that video, and if it is, I can only apologise. I just wanted to share my hobby of fountain pens, which mainly comes from journaling and all the good it does for me and my mental health to sit and write with a bit of music on in the background, and just get my thoughts onto the page and make them real. Okay, that's it. That's all I got. Farewell.